You're ready? Yeah. Okay, good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, February 27th, 2024. Welcome to Dekalb Preparatory Academy's monthly Board of Directors meeting. The time is now 6:37. I'd like to call this meeting to order. May I ascertain a quorum for this evening's meeting? I'll start with myself, Suzette Arnold.
Roberta Walker.
Kathy Ann Young.
Wanda McKay.
Thank you very much.
Lenise Bostic.
We do have a quorum, everybody. Thank you very much. Can I have an approval of this evening's agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda as printed.
I second that.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second for this evening's agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Since there is no opposition, the motion passes for the approval of this evening's agenda. I noticed that we don't have our minutes from the last meeting on our agenda, so I'm going to ask that we do. It's not listed on the agenda, so I'm sorry. On this agenda, we need to include the minutes, the approval of the minutes for last meeting, so we'll amend the agenda to say that. And as we do that, may I have a motion for the minutes? We do have it, it's just not listed on the agenda, so my apologies for that. May I have the approval of the minutes from our last meeting?
I motion that we approve the minutes from last meeting.
I second.
Thank you. There's been a motion and a second for the approval of our minutes for January 31st, 2024. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Since there is no opposition, the approval of last month's minute passes. Thank you, everybody. The next item on our agenda takes us to the head of school report. Dr. Bostic, the floor is yours.
And thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to the board meeting for February. We had a wonderful month. Happy Black History Month. We celebrated definitely here at DPA, and I hope all of you out there also celebrated the many attributes and contributions African Americans have made, not only to this country, but to the world. So happy Black History Month. All right, so we'll get started with our head of schools report. And of course, we go over our strategic areas consistently, and that starts with academic excellence, financial excellence, development excellence, and governance excellence. So at DPA, we strive to be excellent in all areas. All right, I want to have a congratulations to our Dekalb Preparatory Academy January Employee of the Month. Mr. Jonathan Rice is our wonderful music teacher. Yes, you can give him a round of applause. Thank you. Yes, he is our wonderful music teacher, and we want to congratulate him. We also had another honor for our Teacher of the Year, Miss Ward. She has been serving us fabulously as our Teacher of the Year this year, and she's kind of gone on tour a little bit. So this tour for the February was the Rotary Club, and she was honored at the Stone Mountain Rotary Club. And so she was there rubbing shoulders with all of the members of the Rotary Club. The superintendent was there, his cabinet was there as well, so she got plenty of pictures with him, and so and with the cabinet and with all the people of the Rotary Club. So thank you again, and thank you, Ms. Owens, for joining her for that breakfast. All right, we have several highlights. Did you know that we have kindergartners that are 100 years old? Yes, in fact, we do. And you can see pictures of them right now. They dressed up for 100 day of school. That is a big milestone. As you know, kindergartners come to school for the very first time, especially if they have not been or participated in a public pre-K. So making it 100 days is just a big feat. And so congratulations to all our kindergartners and also our kindergartner parents. Thank you. We know those outfits did not happen by themselves, so thank you. All right, so we also have a lot of storytelling and a puppet show from in our media center. You can see the puppets that our children created as well. All right, so we had a first grade Black History Museum. Have you been to a live museum before? It's a museum where you touch someone and they start talking. It's live. It's wonderful. So you touched them and they were able to tell you facts about Harriet Tubman, Martin Luther King, Madam C.J. Walker. So if you missed it, it was definitely a treat. I think my favorite, Bob Marley.
I was gonna say.
Bob Marley will take your heart away. He has a movie now out over about him. So hey, Bob Marley, there we are. All right, wonderful job, first grade students. We also had field trips. So DPA has been on the road. Our kindergarten and first grade students went to the Georgia Aquarium and got to view all the fish in the aquarium. And they brought back pictures. So you can just imagine the wonderment that took place there and the amount of learning that is taking place outside of the classroom. And I want to remind us we can attach and address all of our GPS and all of our standards, not only in the classroom, but also outside of the classroom, and field trips is a big part of that. So thank you, our kindergarten, first grade teachers and the instructional coaches that supported us in that, and also our parents who gave permission for us to take that trip out. All right, so now you might look up and see Mr. Bovelin behind the camera. This is our AVC and our AVC teacher, and you see him now in action doing and helping our board meeting go live via YouTube. So Mr. Bovelin, thank you very much for your contribution to the day as well. All right, we have a lot of parent involvement. We had our academic coach, how to prepare for students for the GMAS assessment at our Muffins with Moms. We had moms and muffins, and we talked about Georgia milestones. So we had our public librarian here from the DeKalb County Library. She came and gave resources on how to join, and then she actually gave out library cards at the end. It was really, a really nice program. And I want to thank our board member, Ms. McKay, for coming to that program and joining us and supporting us in that as well. All right, mother-son sneaker balls. Our mothers dusted off their sneakers and came in fashion and in style to our mother-son sneaker ball. You can see pictures of that. It was a grand event. All right, Charter Day at the State Capitol. So Ms. Owens and Dr. Bostic, myself, we went and spent a day at the Capitol where we got to look at the House and actually meet some people and talk to a lot of other charter school leaders. So it was definitely an event that I want to expand upon for next year. I want to take a larger group next year because it was definitely good to see something that we work so hard on and charter schools be honored on the state floor or the Senate floor. And so that was just a really good experience. So thank you again for alerting us of that opportunity, Board Chair, Ms. Arnold, and we were able to take advantage of it. All right, upcoming activities. March is Read Across America Week. While we read everywhere and every day, we dedicate March to celebrating literacy in the United States. So March 4th through 8th is our Read Across America. We have National Pi Day. How many digits of pi do you know? 3.14156. I don't know any more after that. But if you know it, pi is something that goes on infinity. So the more digits you know, the more accurate your circle can be. But we will be celebrating National Pi Day. So we're not talking about pie that you eat. We're talking about the mathematical pi, 3.14. All right, Beauty and the Beast performance is March 26th and 27th at 6:15 p.m. at a cost of $5 per ticket. If you are ready for a wonderful showcase of talent of our DPA students, please make it a high priority to come meet us at March 26th and 27th at 6:15 p.m. Our current enrollment is 512 students, and you can see where all of those, where the students fall within the different grade levels, how many seats we have available, and how many we have waitlisted. All right, academic updates. All right, in the month of February, we had our Bulldog Learning Lounge after-school tutoring program. That while it says lounge in it, they do not lounge. They are absolutely working hard on literacy and math to make sure that they are absolutely prepared and confident not only for the Georgia milestones, but just to progress to the next grade level. We had our writers' workshops for teachers, where teachers were able to look at some rubrics from the state that actually looked at what our students are producing versus what the state expectation is, and really make sure we have really quality feedback for our students to enhance those things that we want them to definitely demonstrate. And then we have Lenexion's technology program, which is aligned to the Georgia Milestones Assessment System, writing and mathematics. So we were able to roll that out, and our students are now exposed to Georgia Milestones type questions consistently, not only when we're trying to just prepare for the Georgia Milestones, but as we're learning the curriculum, as we go along, they're prepared to how they're going to be asked to demonstrate their understanding and learning. All right, we have Teacher Keys Effectiveness Systems. We have a new walkthrough instrument that provides immediate feedback to teachers. That was created by Ms. Owen. So it's a form that when we go into classrooms, we complete the form, and the feedback immediately can go back to teachers, which is something that is very different than just just Teacher Keys. Because Teacher Keys, we put it in, and it takes maybe 2 or 3 days to put everything in. But this form, we are writing our notes as we see to give feedback, and it immediately goes back through the use of a Google form to the teacher, so they're able to have immediate feedback on what that is, because there's nothing more nerve-wracking than having someone come in your room and not knowing what they're thinking and then going home wondering what it was. Did I do it right? Is it correct? How can I improve? But now they're getting that immediate feedback. We also have grade level planning, and our evaluations are ongoing. All right, for our leader keys, our leaders are definitely in training as well, all the way up to myself as well. So we attend New Principals Academy, the Principals Center at Georgia State University, and we have specialty schools principals meetings and leadership meetings that we attend and go. And tomorrow we actually have our charter school collaborative meeting that we will be attending as well as a team. All right, we have some operational updates. I want to thank Mr. Dennis. He is absolutely awesome at our operations. We had a school safety drill that I'll be talking more about a little bit later during the governance. But our school safety drill, we scored a 101. And as you know, 100 is the expectation, so we were 1 point above that because we go above and beyond. So thank you, and you have a copy of that in your board action notebook. But I just want to highlight, thank you, Mr. Dennis, for that. We had 92% overall participation on the Georgia Health Survey. That's between our parents, our students, our teachers. That means we had over 92%. And you know, a survey is voluntary. You don't have to take it. But we had 92% of our people really wanting to provide feedback for us. And so I want to thank everyone who participated and is part of that. We had our water tower replacement is in progress, and we upgraded our boys' middle school restrooms. DPA website and video update is also in progress. All right, for our technology, IT along with external services are continually monitoring the school's infrastructure for performance and system security. We have our new server, and our new copiers came in. These are nice, bright, shiny copiers that have a code on them, so we can really track how much usage we have of those and really track the spending along with the copiers. And so I think that is a really good direction that we have. It's more efficient, and it's able to track the cost of how much we're copying. So that way we can make, data is the best way to make a decision. And so that those data points where we see how much we're spending is definitely going to help us in the long run. We have 3 vacancies, 2 science teachers and 1 special education teacher. We've been using long-term subs from Charter Network to complete and fill those positions, but we are seeking those, we're all looking for those positions. All right, so of course the Dekalb Preparatory, where every student has a gift. And if I could, within my head of schools report, we have the auditor on standby, and if we could have him present his audit findings at this time, if that would be permissible by the chair.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Bostic. Before we move into the presentation from the auditor. I want to ask board members if they are ready to accept the report as presented.
Yes, I move that we accept.
I second the motion.
We can't have them on at the same time, so we're gonna have to push them on and push them out. Yeah. Oh, I'll go to it.
Okay. Okay, apologies for that technical screeching sound there. May I have that, for the record, the approval of the, not approval, the acceptance of the head of schools report?
I move that we accept the head of schools report as presented.
I second the motion.
All right, thank you, everybody. May I ask the Finance Committee Chair how she would like to proceed with the auditor's report? Would you like to address the financial reports and then move into that, or you do that first and then move into the financial reports? Okay. All right, thank you very much. May I ask our auditors, thank you, first of all, thank you very much for taking time to meet with us this evening to share your report. Sure, no worries.
Yes. All right, so if you would like to share your screen, just to state for, I know everyone else knows that here, but we are live via Facebook, and so via YouTube, and I want to thank you for joining us. And so at this time, you are able to speak, and we are able to see your screen.
Very good. You want me to dive right in?
Yes, we are ready for your report.
Awesome. Well, good evening, everybody. Hi, I'm Randy Strom. I'm an audit partner with Marshall Jones, and joining me is Tim, who is our audit senior on the engagements. And together we will be walking through, we've really got two documents to walk everyone on this Zoom or call or Facebook or wherever we are, YouTube, I think too.
Yeah.
So I'll just start off by saying thank you for engaging Marshall Jones. We performed an external audit for the books and records of Dekalb Preparatory Academy for the year ended June 30, 2023. Right now, everything is in draft form, so if as a result of this meeting we have any additional changes, we can still do that. Ideally, though, we get permission to go to issue as final, and then as early as tomorrow, I can release the final documents. So again, it's two documents, and right now I'm sharing right now is a summary letter of what we were engaged to do. It's called a letter to those charged with governance, and it kind of summarizes required communications. So this just talks about we were engaged to perform a financial statement audit in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. But since you're a school, that we also then were engaged to make the accounting records as it applies to governmental units, which is also known as Government Accounting Standards Board. That's the accepted standard body for establishing governmental and financial reporting principles. And part of an audit is gaining an understanding of internal controls. We did not test internal controls, but if there's over the audit something popped up that we felt was deemed necessary to report or to be in accordance with the GASB financial statements, which we're going to go through, and there was actually an item that popped up. We did actually have a material weakness related to insufficient controls around financial reporting, and I will show you how that looks within the audit financial statements as the next document that I'm going to go through. Other than that, there's just kind of some boilerplate language here. If there was any difficulties encountered during the audit, with management, we have that here, but it was really nice to work with, especially given the, being a first-time audit, there was definitely a learning curve on both sides, and you can see there's some big hurdles we had to go through in order to try to complete the audit. This talks about corrected misstatements, and what that means is as we began the financial statement audit, we were provided a preliminary trial balance. And if as a result of our audit procedures, those numbers changed as what they're eventually presented into the audit financial statement, they're called auditor adjusting journal entries. And those are summarized here, and I'll just read them to you. It says current year pension activity in accordance with GASB 68, the accounting and financial reporting for pensions. And I'll show you how that looks like in the audit financial statement. We also had to correct the beginning equity to match the prior audit financial statement. And let me just pause there, because that is, pretty important. So this year, we would expect to see, management's approval of this year's adjusting journal entries, that they're posted to the books and records of the school, so that then next year, when an auditor begins the audit, they can see that equity agrees to this year's audit financial statement. Because it's really up to management, the board and the external audit accountants to make sure they agree the audit financial statements to the internal books and records of the school to make sure it is complete and accurate. If there was any disagreements with management, we'd have them here. Another good news, there was nothing like that. And as part of other accountants, you did have to rely on KPMG to perform a state's audit for the pension accounting. And again, I'll show you that a little bit later when we go through the statement. Everything else is pretty boilerplate language here. So now I'm going to stop sharing so I can then show the other page. Hopefully that now shows on everyone's
Yes.
screen. Great. Okay. This is the draft of the audit financial statement for the year ended June 30, 2023 for the school. And as we go through these, you'll see that these pages are really prescribed by the governmental accounting standards. So it's not really choices management made. It's not really choices that Marshall Jones made, but they're standard prescribed format that a lot of schools are going to look identical to this financial statement, identical disclosures, identical statements. So there's not a lot of choices to make your school stand out being differently, and that's a good thing. You're very similar to the other schools. And if you looked at last year's audit financial statements, they're going to look very similar to this as well. So I'm just going to pause on the things that are unique and very important for this year's audit for the school. Here is the independent auditor's report. This is what you engaged Marshall Jones to do, is to place an opinion on the books and records of the school. And we were able to place an unmodified opinion on the major fund, and we'll talk about what that is. Those are really the things that the school can control on a daily basis. That's really accounting with GASB with the exception of capital assets or fixed assets, and with the exception of the pension accounting. So that part was fine, and we were able to place an unmodified opinion. However, we did place a qualified opinion on the governmental activities, and that is related to the financial assets of the organization, and there's a paragraph here describing that in more detail. And basically what that means, this was the first year audit by Marshall Jones. So as part of an audit, we asked the prior auditor for supporting work papers, and they were unable to provide any support for the detailed fixed asset listing. But, it's not their books and records, but they maybe should have maintained it. But we also asked the outside accountants for their detailed listing of the school's books and records of fixed assets. Again, not able to be provided. And then we asked school management, the prior finance manager, for their books and records, their detailed fixed assets of the school. Again, not able to be provided. Thus, we were unable to audit and thus unable to place an audit opinion on the capital fixed assets of the organization. And that means the building improvements, any equipment, computers, things like that. So it has a cost, and as well as they're depreciated over time. So we're unable to place opinion on accumulated depreciation as well as depreciation expense for the current year. So let's just pause there. So the school really has two choices going forward. One would be to, if you're fine with this qualified opinion, then really nothing else needs to be done. We can just, or the next auditor can always just continue this qualified opinion. But what we've recommended is the school engage a qualified appraisal company that does this with other schools, that can do a independent verification of all property and equipment of the school on hand, hopefully maybe as of June 30th, 2024, so that an auditor can place an opinion then on that part of the audit financial statement. And really sooner is better than later in doing that. And I recommend that the school really take that option seriously. And because that's going to be a process of one going through due diligence. There's a lot of companies out there that maybe can do this, but you want to find the one that's right for your school at the right price and the right qualifications. And they have them signed up and that appraisal process ready to go on this June 30th. If that's what the school wants to do, I really recommend that be taken seriously and be started soon. Other than that, it's a regular audit opinion of the books and records of the school. Part of a governmental school audit, there's a management discussion and analysis, which just talks about highlights of the organization to kind of tell the reader what to expect on the following pages. These are really, in theory, drafted by management. We help management draft it, but that's why it says unaudited. We don't really test these numbers. We just take them from management, from the information of the audit financial statement. That's why I'm going to skip that information. Well, then we start kind of the heart and soul of the audit, and the first page is called the Statement of Net Position, and this is in accordance with the governmental activities. This has got everything for GASB for a balance sheet in the for-profit world as of June 30th, 2023. So it lists all the books and records of the assets, and you see it has capital assets, depreciable net, $354,000. We're placing no audit opinion on that number whatsoever. And then part of the governmental audit then includes this pension activity, and I'm going to just read you a little bit what that is. Those are very large numbers, both as an asset related to the pension and a liability related to the pension. And what that is, there's a GASB pronouncement, it's called GASB 68 related to pension accounting, and it says an organization must represent their state's allocated portion. In the case of the state of Georgia, for Georgia, it's over a $25 billion underfunded pension amount. So what it does is the state's pension is audited by KPMG, and then they determine what percentage of the state's overall pension is owned by your school, both as an asset and a liability. And then your school gets the information from KPMG, actually 1 year in arrears, that then Marshall Jones is able to rely upon. And there's really boilerplated pages and pages of pension disclosures and amounts of how to calculate this. But keep in mind, that was not originally calculated by the school. We had to do that as an audit adjustment. So I recommend the school calculate their own liability prior to the start of next year. So just kind of tell you what that is. It's obviously a big amount, but it's really not something the school can control on a day-to-day basis. That's why more helpful for, well, let me pause there. So then the next page, also under governmental activities, is the statement of activities. And this is an odd presentation for government basis. You'll never see it anywhere else like this, where the first column is expenses, other columns are revenue, where then you get a net difference between revenue and expenses by each governmental activity. It's very odd. At the end of the day, from a governmental standpoint, there were more expenses than revenues of $284,000. Then moving forward, the non-governmental is from the general fund. Then these are things that the school and board can control more on a day-to-day basis. So this has then, I'm sorry? I don't know if there's-
No, go ahead.
Mr. Fromm.
Okay. So basically just means it's without the fixed assets, which you really can't control on a day-to-day basis besides the accounting for them, and the pensions, which you can't control from a day-to-day basis except for the accounting for them. So again, this is really the day-to-day activities that the board has management over. And you see a very strong financial position where you have over 10 times more assets than liabilities, very strong equity of $4.3 million. And then this would be that. And then we also provide then a reconciliation. How do you get from one books and records for GASB to one books and record for FASB? And it helps you get from A to B. And then this would be that a more standard looking income statement for the day-to-day activities of the organization, where you see revenues of $7 million and it basically broke even about $50,000. Again, a reconciliation on the income statement. And then a lot of pages of footnotes, which again are very similar to prior year, very similar to other schools, very prescribed format. So I'm just going to pause on the areas that are unique and important to this for this presentation tonight. Again, pages for the pensions. That's just a large dollar amount, but it's word for word as given by KPMG and their audit of the state. In the supplemental pages then, we see the actual amounts compared to budget. So if you want to see how the school performed as it anticipated compared to actual, you can see the differences there. They budgeted $476,000 more revenues and expenses, and they had that $50,000, so still positive, but not as positive as budgeted. Then more pages related to the pension, the supplemental information. Again, just more pages for pension, footnotes for the pension. And then here, this is important. I want to make sure we have the attention of them because of the governmental auditing standards that Marshall Jones was engaged to perform on. Since we have to analyze, what the adjusting journal entries occurred and how they occurred. As we mentioned, the problem with not being able to audit or account for the fixed assets of the school. That resulted then in material weakness. And if there's a material weakness, it needs to be on the actual audited financial statement, and it's included here in the opinion. And since this is an opinion, this is important, and words matter. I'm just going to read it so everyone's aware of what it currently says, again, in draft form. So material weakness related to the financial reporting on capital assets. Marshall Jones was unable to place an audit opinion on the school's capital assets as of and for the year ended June 30, 2023. The school was unable to locate any detailed listing of each of its building improvements, furniture, fixtures, and equipment, as well as its related calculated accumulated depreciation. This lack of supporting documentation is due to a lack of a timely review of accounting transactions and UN reconciliations and contributed to the delay in the ability to finalize the annual audit. And just so everyone knows, the part of the state, it actually has a requirement of completing the audit by October 31st. Obviously, we've missed that deadline, and as a direct result of not being able to place an opinion on the capital assets. And then I'll continue. This accounting function inefficiency may cause the financial records and financial statements to be misrepresented, as well as allow possible irregularities, including fraud, to exist and continue without notice. As the monthly accounting is outsourced, we recommend management and or board members establish increased regular supervisory review of accounting transactions and reconciliations, at least on a quarterly or annual basis. So let me pause there. That was really everything I wanted to go through, but again, as in draft form, hopefully we get approval to issue as final. But I'd be happy to answer any questions. And on this document, the first thing I provided at the top has our letterhead of Marshall Jones, which shows our address, our website, and phone number. And really it is, the board that officially has engaged Marshall Jones. That's who we report to. So if there's any questions throughout the year, please feel free to reach out to me. My name is Randy Schrum at Marshall Jones.
Mr. Shrum, thank you very much for your audit report. We appreciate your efforts. I'm going to open the floor to the board to determine whether or not they have questions. But before I do that, I'll ask our treasurer whether or not she has a statement before we do that. Ms. Wilhite?
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Just for point of clarity, Mr. Shrum, can you just repeat the section where you talked about, I think on the income statement for 2023, it showed our final position revenues compared to expenditures. I think we came in with like 50,000 almost on the money. But then I think on the other report, you showed it was like 284,000.
Yep, I'll show you the difference. I'm just pulling it up here. I know I'm not sharing that when we get to the page. Yep, here it is. Okay, there we go. This is page 13 of the audit financial statements, which I had skipped through, and it provides that reconciliation. It shows the one basis of accounting of 50,000 compared to the full governmental GASB basis of accounting, a loss of 200 and almost 285,000. And by far, the biggest is this pension expense. This is a non-cash, usually, and there's monthly payments you make, but this doesn't relate to cash payments generally. It's just a change in valuation, again, calculated by KPMG on a 1 year in arrears basis.
And so just for clarity, that's not, I know you said earlier that we really don't have much control over that, but is that 100% true? Do our leave policies or anything like that, does that indirectly affect it or that's?
Yeah, not from a practical standpoint, there really isn't much you can do related to the pension. Once you hire a teacher, they're in the school system, you just have to record what your allocation of the state's pension is from that point forward.
Okay. And then my second question is related to the qualified opinion. So I think you had a statement. I guess I have a question in the statement. So I thought I remember, Dr. Bostic, you were sharing that the school did hire a company to perform like an inventory for the school. And I know there was some older information shared from prior years. So I guess the first question I have is, what was lacking in the inventory that vendor did, in the inventory they performed? And then I guess, like you said, words matter. I think you had a statement that said that you weren't able to obtain any detail. Maybe that statement should be changed to say complete detail or something to show that maybe it wasn't complete or something. I just wanted to just make sure I had my facts straight in terms of what was missing from the inventory that the company did, and if it just wasn't complete, do we need to change the language to show, not that you didn't have any detail, but maybe it was you didn't have complete detail or something to that effect.
Well, I'm comfortable answering that question. I am comfortable with the current wording, and let me say why. It is true, the school engaged something, attempted to be an appraisal that was forwarded to Marshall Jones, which at the end of the day provided no reliance whatsoever. It actually said it's not to be relied upon by anyone. It failed to inventory the building itself or the leasehold improvements. It only had a desk review, is what they said in their final report, a desk review from Denver of equipment of the school that was provided to them by the school. And then their basis of valuation was not appropriate for an audit either. So from A to Z, there was nothing of value for Marshall Jones to place an audit opinion on. That's why I feel comfortable that it actually was, if anything, it contributed to the delay in issuing the statements because it was a road went down that provided no value.
Okay, so that company never came on site, Dr. Bostic?
So yes, that company came on site and did a thorough review and asset tagged every asset that was in the building and provided an extensive Excel spreadsheet of all the assets that were in the building. And then when it was sent to the auditor, it was sent back that they needed to have the actual depreciation. So we re-engaged them to provide that information, and then we sent it back to the auditor, and it was not accepted.
Well, all I can go by is what the final report said from the appraisal company, and they said it was a desk review performed. It didn't say physically there to count in their final report provided to Marshall Jones.
Mr. Strum, this is Suzette Arnold. I want to ask a follow-up question to that, and I don't know, so this is really just a question. Could it be possible that the language that was stated in the document was standard language and that maybe that language needs to be updated? And I am not in any way suggesting that, that they're trying to say they did something that they didn't do or vice versa. But if they came on site, if they checked, if you asked for additional information and that was done, are you saying it was not adequate, or are you saying it wasn't done at all? Because based on the information that Dr. Bostic is sharing, individuals came on site, did the count, tagged the information, presented it to you. There was no depreciation done. You asked for that. Presumably they went back and they did it. So is it that it wasn't sufficient, or are you saying it just wasn't done? Or was it not done to your liking? What is where's the gap?
They concentrated on just this line item, the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, but in nowhere did they ever refer to the building and improvement. So that was, in this case, even a third, but I believe probably your true value of all your assets is going to be the value of the building and improvements. If you did have a qualified appraisal perform that at the end of June 30, 2024, I believe your books and records will look a lot different if there's a qualified appraisal done on the building and improvements as well as the furniture, fixtures, and equipment.
Got it. And so for me, from my vantage point, the question I have is, did the auditors meet with the individuals to be clear about what needed to be presented? And is that why we have this huge gap?
Marshall Jones was not part of this due diligence process, and we were just notified that someone was engaged, and it was, and honestly, we have to remain independent. So right at the beginning of that process, we reminded management that we have to, it can't be our firm that we've engaged. We need to place an independent opinion of hopefully an independent appraisals that we can kind of go over their shoulder and then concur with their results as an independent expert that you've engaged. Saying that, we have gave a couple options maybe going forward that does have experience with schools, does know how to place a report that can be relied upon by an external auditor, going forward. That could be good options going forward. And I would encourage, maybe if we're part of the communication process throughout, that, as each step of the way, say this is who we're talking to, this is our results, and we can just see, and in case there's something glaringly that pops up, we can maybe hopefully encourage put on the brakes earlier than waiting until, the final report is provided.
Thank you for that, because that was going to be my next question, whether or not you had a recommendation for a company that would be more competent in performing those duties. Ms. Wilhite, are you finished?
Just one other question, just for my clarification. For this particular note, Mr. Schramm, does it matter that we lease the building? Or, does it matter that it's not our building for purposes of this section here?
It would, and I'm under the understanding that you do have title to the building and improvements that you're not leasing. If you were leasing, there's another pronouncement called leases that you put the fair value of future payments on your books and records. That's only a 2-year-old opinion, but that's actually not applicable for here. But and I'm probably not answering that right. But either way, if you own the building or lease the building in current GASB's accounting standards, it'd be represented on your balance sheet in some way.
Okay, yeah, it's actually Dekalb's building. Is it $1, Suzette, that they lease it to us for?
Yeah.
Or something like, we don't have title to the.
Yeah, it's $1.
Well, then that even raises more questions, honestly, because you see right here, the line item called building and improvements, and that was something from prior year audit that had been carried over for a number of years, so.
You're correct.
Going forward.
You are correct, sir. So I think one of the things that we probably needed to share is that even though we don't own the building, we're responsible for all of its repairs. And so this old building that we're a part of, the county does not do any of the improvements, the capital improvements to the building at all. And so because we spend those funds out of our budget, we have to reflect it. So when you say, then that's even a bigger problem, because if it's worth $1 and we show these expensive, it's because we actually do spend those expenses to fix a boiler or the HVAC system or, some drainage or something. The heat, whatever it needs to happen to keep our kids safe and the faculty in the building safe, that's what we do. And so that may not reflect in what is normal, but it is what it is.
Other schools do that, and I think it's obviously been very important to communicate that to whoever, if that's the route you decide to go on, is engage another appraisal company, that they, know the facts and circumstances of, if you don't own the building, then they should only be looking at anything that you've actually paid for as improvements over the years and put a valuation on that only.
Understood, thank you. If you would allow me to, I want to turn the floor to other members of the board besides our treasurer to see if they have any questions of their own. Does the board wish to ask Mr. Shrum and his team any questions about the audit presented? Okay. No questions coming from the board, Mr. Shrum. Thank you very much for the time that you have invested in providing this information to us and the results of your findings. We certainly will take heed to the recommendations that you've made and take a closer look at our internal controls. I noticed that you mentioned that in your reporting of some of the cautionary notes that you made, that you didn't test internal controls, though you saw some areas for improvement. So we will take that to heart and revisit our financial management, for lack of a better term, and follow up with you for any other recommendations for things that you may see, especially surrounding inventory. So we appreciate your time and thank you very much for the work that you've done this far.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So would you like this to?
Yes, sir.
Just need that signed letter back for representation.
You're live on Facebook, so can we circle back tomorrow?
Absolutely.
Sure, we'll make sure that you get a response from us, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, given the report that was just presented by Marshall Jones, the question for the board is whether or not they're willing to accept the audit as presented. And so I'm going to ask the board at this time to determine how they would like to proceed. Would you like to accept the audit as it is presented, or would you like to circle back to our head of schools for any possible corrections or edits that they would like to make to the report? Question on the floor is, what is the feedback from our treasurer?
Well, the only, I guess, edit I had was the question I had around the inventory. But unfortunately, the report says something different than what they actually did. That's the downside. So, I feel like we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place on that one. That's the only thing. Otherwise, it is what it is. If they did, I hate that they submitted a report in that manner if they actually did more than that. I don't know how that happened. That's the only concern I had.
I see opportunities here for us to do some things differently and right. There are several teachable moments I see in this report that we can use to guide how we will do things moving forward from the financial management perspective. I hope that the board will work closely with the school to make those necessary changes to strengthen the areas of weaknesses that was brought forward in this audit. I see several areas here for us to lean into and to ensure that those gaps, do not continue forward, especially around how we calculate our pension liability and inventory, which is something that I've been concerned about, pretty strongly in the past and leading up into this year, and I will continue to do so because of the history that we have around that. So I want to encourage the board for us to be a little bit more stringent in how we manage that process and how we monitor and work closely with the school from the compliance perspective around inventory, equipment, and everything that we use funds to purchase and that we consume, because it is a big deal. It is a state mandated requirement that we have to take pretty seriously and that we have to monitor closely. And that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you for that. And so, just a point of clarification, am I to find the auditor for next year, or is that a board function? I can definitely start that process, but
Not the auditor, I'm talking about the inventory company.
the inventory company. Okay, thank you.
Given Mr. Shrum's comments about, there are several that they know of, I think we start there. I think that they've been very stringent in how they reviewed our financial position. I like that. I think it sets the bar really high for us to ensure that we're doing things appropriately. And so from the audit perspective, I don't have any objection to what the results are. They are what they are. We, as an institution, an academic institution, need to do better. And so that's the charge that I will ask this board to lean into, that we continue to monitor closely and hold accountable where necessary all of the things we need to do to ensure that we're fiscally managing our resources appropriately. Having said that, may I ask the board to make their motion on the acceptance of the audit report, but more importantly, make the motion for corrective action as well.
Presented by Marshall Jones.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you very much. A motion has been made for the acceptance of the audit report for 2023. year ending June 30th, 2023, and seconded by Ms. Roberta Walker. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Pardon me, please. Are there any nays? Since there are no nays, the motion carries for the approval of the 2023 fiscal audit by Marshall Jones. Thank you, everybody. Can we also move to the motion for corrective action?
Have you started the system that you were telling us about where items would be scanned?
Yes, and in the back of your guidance, there is a, there should be, in information only, there should be a DPA asset that I just wanted to give you all for a point, and it's just to ensure the effective management of assets moving forward, and so of all technology. So yes, that system has been already implemented for this school year since I came on board August 1st. Yes.
But this shouldn't be just for technology, it's for all assets.
Yes, it can be amended for all assets. What was requested by the board on last was for our assets for computers, and so this addresses that. But yes, we do have that same technology for asset tagging everything that comes into the building that's bought with school funds.
Yes. Sorry, Dr. Bostic, I do want to hear what the suggested corrective actions are, but beyond that, I would like that formally presented to the board in writing so that we can properly monitor what those things are. Otherwise, it's just, yeah.
So as a point for the purpose of this board is just that a corrective action will be completed, or will be created rather, by the school. And then so if we had a motion to create permission to create the corrective action, then I would create it for this month and then present it next month during our board meeting and committee meeting, financial committee meeting, if that's acceptable.
Okay, is it the,
Just required a corrective action plan to be presented to the board?
with a deadline attached to it, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I move that a corrective action plan be created and presented to the board at the next meeting, first with approval by the finance committee for next month.
I second the motion.
Thank you very much. There's a motion on the floor for the creation of a corrective action plan surrounding inventory management to be created and presented to the board by our next board meeting. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Since there are no nays, the motion carries for the creation and presentation of a corrective action plan to the board regarding inventory management. Thank you, everybody.
You're going to look into other companies, correct, to go ahead and get that started?
Yes, I'm going to meet with him. I just texted him that we did pass this, and I'm going to meet with him tomorrow. So I'll get the names of those companies to present at the next financial committee meeting.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody. Let's move on with our agenda. We did start out with the audit, so I guess we continue with our finance committee reports. Madam Chair, you have the floor.
The finance committee did not meet due to, I had some scheduling conflicts. So we did not meet, but I will turn it over to Dr. Bostic if she has something to present to the board.
Yes, I do. Would you mind if I went through the financials that we do have available for the month end?
That's fine.
Okay.
Recording stopped.
Okay, one moment, I'm bringing them up. Yeah, I'm bringing it up in one moment. It should be up. Okay, thank you. Okay, good evening again. These are our, just a snapshot of our budget versus actuals for the month of January. We have our income, the actual was $619,748,010. The budget was $747,605.34. Our expenses, our actual was $851,736.77 and our budgeted was $693,843.07. Our current assets, checking and savings, $4,314,291, and our fixed assets and long-term assets is $7,320,430. Then we have our personnel and our revenue sources and our cost analysis per categories, and then we also have our checking accounts. And so I want to go over our, if you see, we have our annual budget. And
Dr. Bostic, did you say you could share the screen or no? Because I'm not seeing anything.
Yes, I'm sharing the screen on the live, but not on the Zoom link.
Okay.
All right, so this is our profit and loss versus budget versus actuals. However, Ms. Wilhite, it is emailed to you, so you do have it within your email. I'm just going over the same thing that was emailed. Would you like for me to resend or continue?
So you can go ahead.
Okay. All right. So this is the profit and loss budget versus actuals for July, all the way through current month. And so you can see the actual budget budgeted items, and then where we are. So I'm gonna skip on down to our actual month, January, and then you can see where we are versus on the actual budgeted items. All right, and this is just another profit and loss budget versus actuals. So you can see where we are on each line item. And then it also has the annual statement or the annual projections as well. So if we go back to our snapshot, that kind of tells us where we are as of right now. And so we have several expenditures that are coming in. For example, our federal funds, we've just put in several requisitions that are coming in, as well as our nutrition. We've recently learned that we're getting those regularly, and we are obtaining the correct amounts now for nutrition, our nutrition reimbursements. So are there any current questions about our budget?
Yeah, I do have a question, Dr. Bostic. Can you scroll up? Because I want to make sure I'm seeing this accurately. Thank you. So we have our actuals and our budgeted. I'm looking at our top January 24 actual, where income and expense. So it says that according to this document at the top, we have actuals budgeted where we're in arrears right now? Is that what that's showing? We have actuals and we have budgeted, so we're overspending our budget?
We're underspending in our income. We're getting more income than we budgeted, and we're spending more than we budgeted. And
if we're spending more than we budgeted, we need to be doing budget amendments. We can't spend more than we have.
I agree. And I'm looking at that, and a lot of it has to do with personnel. And when we're looking at our looking at substitutes and having to pay substitutes, as well as paying for the company to pay for the special education teachers.
Right, but that means that you then have to go back to that line if we're overspending in that line and increase the line to accommodate what you need, because otherwise we're operating right now in a deficit, and there's no way of knowing where we will end up in June if we continue on this trajectory.
I agree, and I think that's definitely something we can mull over in our finance meetings when we are able to go over it line by line. That is something that we can definitely address.
So what are we projected to be at the end, like right now, what's the year-end projection for the school?
Yeah, actual. One moment, I'm looking. I believe this is, would that be the profit and loss budget versus actual statement?
Does it have a projection on it?
Oh, here's what projection. So it has projected, I can look at the, so I have the annual budget, over budget, under budget, and then percent of budget projection, and the annual projection, and the total projection. So I am looking at the right statement now. With, yeah, this is the projection. So we're projected for, it just goes line by each budget item. So let me see.
According to that, we're projected to be in a deficit by $500,000, just over. So
That says, yeah, over budget.
Correct.
If we continue going, yeah, if we continue moving in the direction.
So we shouldn't be spending funds that we don't have. And the only way to know that is if we're properly managing our spending. So now, this is a huge concern of mine. Because we can't just get something because we want it if we're not looking at how we're spending and whether or not we have the money available to us. And based on that, that's saying we don't have it.
Well, I think based on this, it's saying it's not allocated in the correct line items. And so I think those are two ways that we can say. Saying we don't have it is one way of looking at it, but we do have it, but is it budgeted in the correct line item? I think that's a discussion that we probably need to explore.
So when are we going to be able to see an updated financial report that shows us really where we truly are? Because personally, for me, I'm not comfortable with approving anything when it's showing a deficit of $500,000.
And I think that is something that can definitely be fleshed out in the finance committee.
Okay. Hopefully we can do that sooner or later, because this is not a responsible way for us to be operating.
Well, I want to just positive pushback on that about financial responsibility. We are definitely looking at what we spend and how we spend. I am the final approval on all funds that are spent out, and so I do look at how we're spending it and if we have enough to spend and where is the money coming in and out. I think the way that is displayed may look like, and then when we go through our actual next year's budget and we're able to properly allocate where the funds are and where the healthy spending of the school is, I think that's going to be better reported by the school. I think there was a lot of spending historically that was in between line items, so we may have spent something out of operating that really should have been out of nutrition or out of, and so we're now getting all of those fiscal things in order so that we're spending from the right accounts, and now we're reflecting that, and this is part of that work, and so this is something that the school has been engaged in. It's something I've been engaged in since August, since I've came on board, because it's definitely a concern. I understand your concern. I have an accounting background as well. It was very different coming in and making sure that we're in organized. I organized an instructional program, and now we're organizing the financial health of how we actually spend. And so I do want to reassure the board that it is definitely been responsible spending. However, how it's reflected and how it's been budgeted is that definitely, I think we can definitely flesh out a little bit further in the finance committee.
Okay. I look forward to that, but I still maintain my position that until I see something that puts us in the positive, I am still not comfortable with making a decision that shows us in a deficit. And what's being presented is the only thing I have to go by, because I'm not there every day. So with all due respect, what's presented to me is the only reference I have. So the only reference point I can go to is that we're in the negative, and I can't trust that we're not if that's the only thing that's being presented to me. So until I see something differently, that's what I'm going to be reflected. That's what I'm going to use as my point of reference.
And you're looking at that overall, Dr. Bostic, right? So even if it's a matter of, it might be certain categories, overall, you're still coming to the same deficit.
Correct. It doesn't matter where the money is in the end, because I'm looking at the bottom. I'm not looking on the lines. I'm seeing where you're coming out in the end. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter how many times you reconcile, unless you're adding dollars, the bottom number is still going to be negative 500,000.
And I think that's where the school is in a different viewpoint, because there are dollars that are going to be added as when we have grants, reimbursements that have not been drawn down yet. And so we are at the drawdown disposal of our authorizer for when we receive those funds. And so, for instance, we have $150,000 in Title I funds that we have not received. We have ESSER funds, I think they said in $1.something million that we have not drawn down yet. And so there are parts of this that are not included in this because we have not received the actual funds on hand to include.
But that's a problem, because we should be doing modified accrual, which means that if you anticipate the funds, you should be reflecting the funds so that your books are a bit more balanced.
Correct.
So if you anticipate those funds, they should be reflected in your accrual somewhere. And if that's the case, that means what you just said, that's not happening.
Correct. No, that is not happening, and I think that's the level of risk that everyone has. It's different. If you want to do modified accrual and include that, then I mean that's a different model of financial accounting that we can do. But I probably feel more comfortable making sure that we have funds in hand because it has to come from the federal government to Dekalb and then to us, and to make sure. I don't know if we're going to get those funds this year or if they're going to include it in next year's budget, what they've had before historically. So that's why whatever we have on hand is pretty much what I try to go by. But if you want to do modified accrual, and if we want to move in that direction, I can definitely adjust to that.
So let me say this, it's not what I want, it's the required financial accounting for charter schools. It's not a Suzette thing, it's what's required by the state and by the district. So it's not me having a preference, it's what's required. So I'm not asking this because that's what I want to see, I'm asking it because that's the kind of accounting that we're required to do as government. We should be doing modified accrual because it gives us. Correct.
If there's no receivable set up for it, like if you haven't requested reimbursement for the funds, then you can't show it. That means it's not on your books anywhere.
Correct.
So you don't want to show anything on the books that you haven't actually set up a receivable for.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, how do we move on from here, Ms. Wilhite?
Are we ready to accept the report as presented?
Yes, if that's what you would like us to do moving forward.
Okay, I move that we accept the financial report as presented, though we're not approving it because these are unaudited statements.
Okay, there is an acceptance being recommended by our treasurer to accept the financial report as presented, with the caveat that these are unaudited financials and therefore we are receiving the report only in its reported form, but not as for its accuracy. Is that the board's desire to accept the report as presented? It has to be copied in the record, so I need to hear it.
She made the motion that we accept the report. I second the motion.
Okay, but the rest, thank you. I need to know that the active board, we need to have an approval of majority, if that's okay with everybody. Yes? Thank you.
When it's, if the reimbursement comes through?
Yes, when the reimbursements come through, and I fully anticipate the reimbursements coming in once it's been processed. But yes, it will be reflected.
Oh, please go ahead.
Over the past couple of months since November, we have talked about how we are going to move forward with our compensation for our teachers, and so at this time I want to move forward with our compensation study, and this was completed so that DPA could remain or could become rather competitive in regards to our surrounding counties and our surrounding charter schools, so that we can attract the best most qualified, highly qualified teachers to come and teach before our wonderful students. So at this time, I'm going to yield the floor to Dr. Blackshear, who is the committee lead for the compensation study, and we are going to present our findings.
Can I ask Dr. Blackshear to pause for a moment so I just clarify with our treasurer? Are you open to allowing this to be presented at this time?
I have not seen that. We didn't have a finance committee meeting, so just so you know, that hadn't been vetted by the finance committee, but it's because it was a scheduling issue. Is what Dr. Blackshear is presenting, has that been emailed to everyone?
It has.
Okay, I didn't see that.
Can the presentation be done and the questions come after, since you haven't had an opportunity to meet as a finance committee?
Yeah.
Approving
Yeah, I don't
the
have
report to
an
be
issue with,
presented to the board?
hearing the presentation, but I would like time to flesh it out in the finance committee, but I think they should go ahead and present it.
Okay, no worries. So the treasurer is suggesting that the report be presented to the board with the caveat that that it was not approved in the finance committee, but the board can receive the information and go back and review and ask questions later. Okay, thank you, Ms. Willhead. Dr. Blackshear, you have the floor.
Good evening. To the DeKalb County Governing Board, DeKalb Preparatory Academy Governing Board, to the DeKalb Preparatory Central Office, staff and students, also to our parents and our community stakeholders. I feel it a privilege to present to you as part of the committee for compensation and recruitment for highly qualified staff to talk about our quest to receive 100% of our staff next year. Our goal is to have them all to be certified. Secondly, we want to decrease the attrition rate of losing staff and turning over at about a 50% rate each year. And also, we want to increase sustainability. So those were the goals of our study. So in looking at this, there are two funding things that was considered, but the one we focused on was QBE funding and how that would assist us in asking and looking at compensation that would make us competitive with the counties and the other charter schools around us. In having highly qualified staff, it increases the rigor, the outcomes, the success of students. And there's research that shows that all of the other programs that you put in place, after school, before school, Saturday school, summer programs, are great, but nothing beats a highly qualified teacher in a classroom every day. And so that's our quest. So in looking at this, we looked at and got some feedback about looking at rubrics. So the rubric that we came up with in our committee was that we were looking at a rubric based on the levels of certification, because it's our goal to hire certified teachers. And so in the levels, we looked at level 4, which would be a BA, BS, or some associate degrees bring about certification now, like if you're in the technology fields. We also want to look at them for the type of certifications that they have, their teacher leadership experience, their years of certified service in teaching of the education field, additional certifications such as gifted, ESOL, and things, teacher support, coaching certifications, leadership certifications, prior year evaluations, summary of student growth data, and other criteria that you can bring to and enhance the achievement of the students at DeKalb Preparatory Academy. In our salary ranges, not only did we put in the rubric the salary ranges that we would like to do for each level, we also put the QBE funding that will come for that. So although we know that QBE by itself, the quality-based education, does not fund all of it, but it supports much more than we're receiving now. And we have this for all levels. And you notice all levels have a range, except when you get down to the provisional level. Provisional level does receive QBE funding, but if you're provisional, you're at provisional level until you become certified as a T4 or higher. Also, we still left in the rubric staff that is not certified. And you notice staff that is not certified receive no QBE funding. And right now, about half our staff receives no QBE funding. And so as we did this, we took a sample, I would say a sampling, because, you know, I'm not in personnel, so Dr. Merritt worked to get the type of certifications and the salaries of the staff that we have, and then it was blinded to give to me. And so from that, we went about developing the spreadsheet. And hold on 1 minute, let me pull it up. So, do you have it? Okay, all right. Do you have the spreadsheet? Okay. We went about developing the spreadsheet. If you see in the very first column, I did denote the special education teachers, the EIP teachers, and the media specialists. Everything else is blank or teachers. Because these are what we earned. And so we felt that they need to be part of the actual sample. But if you look at the column C, you notice that we have a lot of NAs. All of those NAs or staff that we have hired right now that have a degree but do not have a professional standards commission certification. So when you look at that, let me turn to the page and give you some numbers. When you look at what we pay out for, according to just the tally of these people, we pay out this is how much it equals. $2,558,152.62. That's how much. If we gave them the raises that we're proposing today, we would pay out $3,037,706. Now, that's a variance of $479,558.38. But if we move on down to column L, we will look at the QBE funding for this year. In matching the QBE funding to the certifications that we have, and if you look at look at the QBE funding, going down row L, you see a lot of blanks. Those blanks are $0 coming from the state. $0. You notice we have quite a few blanks there. So those people we are paying for out of the school's budget only. So the QBE funding for this year, according to, if we are matching these, would be $1,130,615. So now if you go and look at QBE funding for the certified staff, according to where they would be certified, and the funding, notice there are no blank fundings. Every position is funded under the certification of QBE. And that's because a provisional certificate is funded. And so some of the teachers who have degrees, Dr. Mary has worked diligently to get everybody either taking the test, getting certified, getting in TAP programs, so that we can receive funding for everyone in the building. That is our goal. And with that, we will get $2,249,898. So what would be the cost of DPA in FY 24, which is this year? Our cost would be $1,373, $553.18. And the cost to DPA, if we had certified teachers, would be $787,808. Therefore, DPA would save, with certified staff versus what we have now, $558,745.18. So in looking at the compensation study and the scales, we did a scale that would match evenly. We looked at a compensation study of paying steps 1 through 21, because those are the steps that the state pays, 1 to 21. And with this, not only would we have higher qualified staff who could bring the rigor and the experience, it would give us extra funding to pay for primary sources and experience for our kids and to nurture that great success. It would give us that $585,000 will give us that savings that we are paying out currently. Not only would it do that, it would just make the entire school be able to drive toward making sure every student, every day, is college bound, because every student at the Dekalb Preparatory Academy has a gift. Do we have any questions?
Hi, thank you
committee.
for the report and y'all's work on this. I have a few clarifying questions. The first clarifying question is, so what is the plan for the teachers who are not certified by the top of the year? Are we looking to replace them? Will they still have a space here at DPA? And the follow-up to that is, if they do have a space, I'm just looking based on what I see here. It looks like a non-certified teacher for the new proposed salary is estimating a $7,000 increase. Are we naming that they would still get that increase, or are they staying at their current base salary of $43,000 and some change?
Okay, well, Dr. Mary has worked to try to get everybody provisional. But if they do not receive a provisional and we keep them, they state, I have, in your rubric, you have one that pays non-certified, they would stay at that scale. And then if they get a provisional, you stay on a provisional scale until you come off. But the difference between staying on the other scale, we receive no dollars from the state. But if we get them to a provisional, at least we receive $37,000 per provisional certificate. So far, I believe everyone has, that we work with can get a provisional. Am I correct, Dr. Mary? About 90%. At least 90%.
So with that 10%, are we looking to keep them? Or what are the next steps for that 10%, I guess? Are we looking to seek qualified teachers to replace that 10%?
That's a question for Dr. Merritt and Dr. Bostic.
Okay. Hold on a second. That question has to be talked about in a
Personnel, right?
personnel.
Okay, all right.
That's an executive
Right,
session.
I knew I couldn't answer, right, okay.
Response.
Sorry about that.
So
Okay.
that's okay. We'll just address it when we get into
Okay.
a space where we can do it in executive session.
I do have another clarifying question.
Sure.
You named that part of the scale, and I'm not sure if I'm just not seeing it. I don't see the scale here, so I'm just going off of...
Okay, if not, we'll get them to you. We have a scale comparison of the QBE funding and the, and our proposal. It's 2 sheets. We can get that to you. We were trying to maybe put it in the rubric. So the rubric kind of gives you the scale for each level, the bottom scale and the top scale. Both of them are on that same sheet that you have the rubrics in, near the bottom. You'll see the range, like for T4, do you have those, are they in there, the rubrics?
Yes.
Okay, at the bottom, you'll see the range that we want to pay and the range that QBE will refund. And if not, we can get to you by tomorrow, because I have them. The QBE funding sheet and the one that we're proposing.
Can you pull back up okay, here it is. And yeah, it's at the bottom of these sheets that are in yours.
Those are the ranges. But she's looking for the one-to-one comparison, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess.
We can get them to you. We have them.
Okay. And then when you named that they're causing a blank for the name, but when you named about their evaluations, are those based on their TEKS evaluations that's going to determine part of the scale, or what evaluations specifically were you speaking about?
Dr. Boss would have to answer.
Thank you. Yes, we're talking about their TEKS. And so we were going to ask prospective candidates to, whatever you can provide, evaluations. Like we do have access to our TEKS, our prior year TEKS. And so if you have that, teacher, that's our teacher evaluation instrument. If you have copies of that, then that would be part of that evaluation. And that would move you up the scale for the rubric, according to the rubric, and earn you more points, which would earn you higher up the salary scale.
So you don't have a list that has each staff member's certified years of, like how many years they have of certification?
Okay, it's on the, it's, if you go back to the Excel document, it's on there. What their years of experience and the pay scale they're on now, the salary for that, then where in talking to Dr. Merritt, where they would be next year, and you know they move up a notch, and where they would be on the new proposed salary scale. Then we looked at the difference. Then we looked at what funding you would get from the state, from Quality Basic Education Act. And that's when, by my surprise, that I found that we will save $585,000. I thought it might be that we would lose it, but I was surprised. Just filling those blanks from those zeros to $37,000 a year makes a difference.
And may I add?
$0.
And may I add, what has been the practice is we have, like, let's take a candidate that has zero, that we're getting zero funding for. That teacher would still move up a step every single year, and we would pay them additional funds while we're not getting any of the QBE funds. So this is really solving a challenge that we have had historically for financially, that for all of DPA since year one, actually. And so that is why we're looking at this and making sure that QBE is at the forefront of our mind when we're hiring, and looking at candidates that follow that. And we have made that abundantly clear to our current staff and those who have not met that requirement about being certified or highly qualified or even provisional. We have given them support with tests, tutoring. Dr. Blackshear is not going to say it, but she's tutored several staff members to help them
and they passed.
get over. And they passed. Yes, they passed. We have celebration parties every time they pass. But so this is something that is an ongoing financial concern. So going back to what the auditor has said about having financial controls and being able to have projections in our funding, this is one of our big concerns about not receiving all the funds that we are due as a charter school, and it's because we're just not doing this part. And so now we have, and I thank Dr. Merritt and his work, and that's part of the corrective action plan as well from Dekalb that I'm going to be talking about a little bit later, is having 50%. Right now we have about 50% of our staff that was certified and 50% that was not, and that was what was reported. Now we're well above 80% of our staff, and that is a direct correlation to this administration. Dr. Merritt, I appreciate you again talking and working with each staff member to walk them through, because what we found was we had several staff members that had degrees that just never did the process, and now we're just walking them through the process to get that, because we know the undergird need is to have the funding for our school, and this is not DPA funding. This is really what belongs to our students, and so they deserve to have the best in front of them, and that's why we're asking for the board to consider this. And just one more thing, this goes into our HR recruitment. We've been recruiting via social media, via recruiting, and we've been to job fairs, and so we are recruiting staff members. However, we are not competitive with our current salary structure. This structure puts us in a competitive advantage, and the teachers that we want are looking for jobs now, typically before spring break. We want the teachers who are planners, that make sure they have their life together for the next year, and they're looking now. If we don't start looking until April, we have really missed an opportunity to have the best teachers available.
I will make sure that I put them in an email, send to Dr. Boss, is sent out to the board this evening, first thing in the morning. Also, I want to just say that some of the staff had everything they needed except the test, but just that little fear of taking the test. So through Dr. Merritt, just really encouraging them, and I'm saying, come on, don't be afraid, let's try it. You know, they are passing on the first time, some of them. So they act different once they get that certificate, and it makes a difference. It really does. So that highly qualified, just knowing you're grounded, knowing your place, just makes it better for our kids. And as my dad used to always say, I always talk about my dad, you're only as good as your experience. And that's what the kids need, many more rigorous experiences.
I just again want to thank you guys for this report. I do feel as I'm looking at the salaries in comparison with the certification levels that it will make us a lot more competitive, and the more certified, qualified teachers we have will have a more positive impact on some of the data that we're seeing from an academic perspective. So thank you for putting this together.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, Dr. Blackshear, I have a comment and a couple of questions for you, but let me just say this. This board has been asking for, I'm not going to say how long, but we've been asking for this change for some time, focused on the fact that while a step may be attractive to some people, it really didn't benefit the school in the way that you have presented that. I'm happy to see that the time was invested in looking at the analysis and looking at the benefits of doing it differently than the way we're doing it now. Our treasurer has been an advocate for this change for years. Like I said, I'm not going to say how long, but there have been board members who've been pushing for this. And because we know and we could have seen the benefit, we just didn't run the numbers because we're not supposed to do that and then turn around and vote on it. So the school had to do it. So congratulations, thank you for taking this bold step in Dr. Merritt and team in doing this. I'm sure when the board sits down to really dig into the numbers, and may I also ask that there's one other component to this that I'm not sure that you thought about, is the subject area teachers. Some teachers you get more money for some teachers than for others. So as you are hiring, look at the teachers that you need to have. Some enrichment programs do not carry money and some do.
Right.
And so as you are hiring around those, look at what you need
Absolutely.
and how you can strategically get more funding in based on the teachers that you are attracting. Because you can get a music teacher and get no funding, and you can get a science teacher and get 4 times
Absolutely.
the amount. So I'm just, not that we don't want music, but strategically look at where the needs are. And that adds to the funding as
Right.
well.
And then under other criteria, some other things we was looking at is that, like in science and things of that nature, if you have been a robotics person, you can bring those things to the thing. So that's why we had the other criteria category to add points for things like that enhances our students in the STEAM. And also we want, more of our audio, video communication, that we're actually engaging the kids. And by 8th grade, they can really make their own movie and write the script and all of those things that increase their academic rigor and success for advanced placement classes, which is something we're looking at for the certified teachers for next year also, to begin advanced placement classes.
Yes.
It's part of our recruitment.
Music to my ears, Dr. Blackshear. Thank you.
Are the support team counselors and the social workers included in that?
Yes and no. They are certified, so they will. We do get some funding for them, but they were not necessarily 1-for-1 in this budget, because basically when I did this budget, we only did the people who were working 200 days. So all the others, like the coaches thing, would have more days or more time. So it will balance out the same way. But what I will do for you is I will look at the QBE funding for counselors, social workers, and things like that, and do a quick analysis of that and add it to the bottom.
Thank you, Dr. Blackshear. So here's my question. How can the board support teachers to develop professionally in that teacher retention strategy that you have? What is the proposed or recommended allocation to target that? I know it's a strategy. I know it's what you want. But like I said, I saw a negative number of $500,000 on my spreadsheet. Until somebody tells me how that reconciliation will be worked out for us to be able to support that, I need someone to tell me it's going to cost this much money to get it done. Here are the number of teachers that we need to support in getting it done. Here's who we're keeping who are not certified, and this is how much money we need to get them and support them. What is the plan? What is the plan as we move?
Well, I believe contracts will go out before the next board meeting.
Okay.
So that will tell us that part. But the biggest problem right now It's because we have not approved the compensation study. We had some great people moving in town and things. We could not tell them how much they would make. But at every other table they went to, they could give them a salary scale. So I just ask humbly that we consider, once I get the additional information to you, you go into your executive session, whatever, that you really consider this as a burning platform, that we need to be able to tell people how much they make. Not only for that, everyone is recruiting our teachers and throwing the salaries out to them. That's why one of our comparison studies were 2 charter schools on here. They are paying more than we are paying. They are paying quite a bit more than we're paying right now. But we would be more competitive. We did not go with the high salaries people are paying, nor are we at the low. We kind of fell in the middle.
Right.
But the middle is competitive. But right now, we are just not competitive.
Got it.
And if so, we just can't afford to lose half our teachers every year. And so I'm just asking that we really consider this a very important thing. And, I'm not right to call meetings a thing, but I just don't think we can wait another month.
You won't get any argument there from me, Dr. Blackshear. The board has to decide, and I respectfully allow the board to make their decisions as they see fit. And so I want to thank you for making that presentation. Are there any other questions? Ms. Wilhite, do you have any concerns, any questions, anything you want to add or bring to the fore at this time?
No, I don't have any questions right now.
Okay. And so the question I have for the board is, what is the pleasure of the board for the report that they've received? Do they want to have time to meet to talk about it? What is the action that the board would like to take at the moment? Go ahead.
May I make a suggestion to the board? Is it possible that we pass this, but then we vote on it, and then if we need to make adjustments or arrangements to that, then we can do that in another session or a special called meeting, or in the finance meeting we can adjust the scale, or if we have a motion to accept it, and then with the ability to edit if needed.
Madam Treasurer, what say you?
Voting for it at this point. I mean, this is the first time I'm seeing it, so I really can't. I don't feel comfortable voting on it without digging a little deeper and looking, because I appreciate the presentation and looking at it, but just the way I process stuff, I need time to just really look at the numbers and think about what the impact is.
Okay.
There's only one thing, Dr. Blackshear, that I think is missing from this, and I'm not sure whether or not it's something that wasn't processed. It's every single teacher who works with us becomes a part of the TRS? TRS? And so with the increase of that salary, DPA has to have some, how'd you say? What is the phrase, Janelle, help me?
What the
We have to
benefit.
be able to pay into that system even
the-
after they leave, correct. And
Right.
so that continuity of financial support doesn't go away because the teacher is no longer at DPA. And so there is longevity in how we pay our teachers, and retirement is a big deal. And so we have to be able to look at the consistency
Okay.
of that. And you may notice that in the audit report that was done, one of the cautions that our auditor made is looking at our pension liability. And so that's the part that I don't think was addressed in this.
It was not, nor were
Yeah.
benefits, because
Correct.
I was thinking that benefits would stay the same, because we are not changing the benefit ratio part. But I will go back and ask the committee, we'll meet again, and go back and take a look at the TRS liability part and try to address that with the other 3 things that Ms. Guyton's written down over there. We need to give the one-to-one sheets, look at the counselors, social workers, and those support staff, wraparound service staff, and how the certification affects them. And and we'll try to get that report to you in the next couple of days.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable approach to take. My only caution is if we vote on something that has dollars attached to it and you find an error and it is something that is critical, it doesn't leave us enough room to be able to make an adjustment.
Okay.
And so I would not want to put you in the position to find out once you look at the pension liability and the other things that you're suggesting, that it becomes a burden to the school to be able to maintain that. I want you to be comfortable in what
Okay.
you're assessing, and if there
Understand.
are adjustments you have to make, whether you have to look at your benefits and say, we don't let people pay right now, maybe we let them pay a small percentage. Whatever
can
you
look at
have
that.
to do, give you the leverage to be able to do
Right,
that. And
right.
at the moment, because you didn't consider it, I am going to suggest that you do before saying to the
Bring
board,
it back.
commit to this, and then
Right.
you find out you're coming back to ask for an additional $500,000.
Okay.
Ms.
Well,
Arnold?
today is Tuesday. Look for it. We will have it. Dr. Boss is on the committee also, so we will meet and take a look at that. And I would say that we should be able to have it to Dr. Bossett by Friday.
I think this is tremendous work. Thank you. I mean, like I said, we've been asking for this before, and it had never been done. So this is a huge, huge first step. I can't say enough how appreciative, I can't speak for the other board members, I am of this, but I would like us to do a comprehensive approach, not just look at salaries, but everything that considers compensation.
And the total budget.
Because the compensation affects the budget, and it is the largest part of the budget, and we have to be able to sustain the
Sustainability,
payments
absolutely.
year after year, correct. And so for that reason, I would like for you to take another look.
Can I propose that, that we, when that information is presented to the committee and has been approved to the committee, that we do a special call and not wait for the next board meeting? And the reason why I name that is, being that the next meeting would be in March, most qualified teachers are signing contracts before then. And so you're getting the latter end of the barrel. And I want to make sure that while we are making sure that we're financially stable and can contain this, but we are all making sure that we are still able to actually seek the qualified teachers that we need.
Point well taken, Ms. Robinson. You are free to make the motion and for it to be on the record, and you may even go as far as suggesting the date. We're all here except one. If you're committed and serious, we can look at our calendars and determine who's available. If the quorum is available, let's get it done.
Dr. Blackshear presented.
So what?
Can you repeat, Ms. Wilhite?
Do we have all the backup documentation, like the spreadsheet that she was talking from? We have all that in the email?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna send it out again after this meeting. I'll send it out. Okay.
Okay.
Ms. Robinson, you want to go ahead with that motion?
Check with Janelle. They're asking if Tuesday, the March 5th would work.
For a special call meeting.
Oh, that would be virtual?
Yes, ma'am.
That should work.
I motion for a special call meeting on March the 5th at 6 o'clock to discuss what is this? The proposed pay scale, new pay scale.
Okay, is that a finance meeting or a board meeting?
Wait, hold on one second. So when are we having a finance committee meeting then?
That's what I was thinking, it's the finance committee.
Good question, because the finance committee has to approve it before it can go to the board. So, thanks for that clarification. So let's take a step back. The finance committee didn't meet, so then let's get that sorted out first. So when is the finance committee? Some of us are here. When can we meet next? I hate to do this to you, Dr. Bostic, but we may have to decide, because that can't happen unless, the board can't approve it unless the finance committee approves.
But then
So,
we want to push that date back, let that be the finance committee date, and push the board meeting back.
so March 5th, March 5th, you're saying the finance committee?
Correct. And then
Is-
meet
is-
after March 5th. for
Yeah,
the
and have
board.
another date for the board.
Yeah.
We can meet the same week. With if we met on the 5th, and if there were any changes to address, then we could then meet as a board on the 7th. Would that work? Ms. White?
Let's see. The 7th, that's a Thursday?
Yes.
That should work. I just have a question too, Doc. Have you guys started with the budget for next year? Because all of this ties together.
Yes. We've started preliminary budget, looking at what we're looking at, but we have talked about it, and we put out like our wish list, like what we want and what we might think, but then we're looking at also what the salary scales as far as the what we're going to propose. So yes, short answer. Longer answer, if once we have a
Ending the current budget, because the numbers that are coming from this year's budget will likely move
Influence next year.
Correct. So before we start talking about next year's budget, let's please take care of this year's budget and the amendments around where we are, especially that deficit withstanding.
And the as we're considering increasing salaries, that's going to impact this year and next year. And I think it'd be helpful if you at least have like we're behind normally where we would be, because normally by this time we would have had at least a revenue projection for the budget year. Like we usually start off with the revenue projection. So if you could bring that to the finance committee as well for the next year, just so we know as we're considering that we know, okay, this is our potential revenue projection, and here's what, this salary increase would cost us, and, whatever. Or we could dig deeper. I'd like to have that information handy.
All right, is that a motion on the floor?
Thank you. Yeah, she just explained in detail what the enrollment projection was, and so yes, I will bring that.
Yeah, the enrollment projection and how that translated into revenue.
I'm sorry, she meant the revenue. I meant to say the revenue projection. Yes, the
Okay.
yes.
I mean, both they go hand in hand.
Yes.
Enrollment, and then how that translates into
Okay.
revenue.
Will do. She just said that, and I just had enrollment as my last thought process. But yes, revenue enrollment. I'm taking notes. Enrollment, pet project, and then grants. Okay.
Are we ready? All right. We have the motion.
I motion for us to call for a special call meeting on March 7th to go over the proposed salary scale, pay scale for the 2024-2025 academic school year.
I second the motion.
There's a motion on the floor for a special called meeting on March 7th to review the proposed salary scale for the school year 2024 to 2025. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Since there are no nays, the motion carries for a special call meeting on March 7th. Thank you, everybody. Is there anything else that comes from the Finance Committee meeting? We're running a little bit behind, so I would like for us to advance a little faster if we can. And I say that with all due respect to other committees who have to present to the board. If there is nothing else, Ms. Wilhite, can we move on to the next committee meeting?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I'll move straight to Academic Committee. Ms. Roberta, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. We, the Academic Committee, met on Wednesday, February 14th, on Valentine's Day. We actually had a meeting. And there were several items that were discussed, including the Professional Development Day that's coming up on March the 8th for teachers. And that will be a day where students will be at home with their computers learning, virtual learning. And we also wanted to point out that testing is coming up on us really fast, April 17th through the 29th, but that's not far away. So that will be our milestone testing. And Dr. Bostic has a couple of board actions that we need to, in here that we need to bring forward.
Just one, the hiring of Isaiah Roberts. We actually spoke about him, I think 2 months ago, and approved it in committee, but I failed to put it on the last board meeting in January.
Right. Yes.
So if we could vote on him as a long-term sub, his information is, I resubmitted it again, but it is one that we discussed previously. So if we could vote on that. Could I make a motion?
No, I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I'm just trying to see exactly, he's to be a long-term sub in what area?
General ed?
I mean, do you have a grade level that he's assigned to, or?
Right now, we have 2 science teacher vacancies, so we need to get some long-term stuff that's different. I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
That's okay. I looked at you and you gave me an answer. Thank you very much.
We hire from the agency.
Okay.
We pay 170 to 190 days long term. But if we hire them ourselves, it's $120 a day.
Okay.
We save
Considerably. For what okay. Very good. Thank you. I move that we hire Mr. Isaiah Roberts as a substitute teacher. The cost to complete this school year would be $9,600. That's at $120 per day for the next 80 days.
I second the motion.
You have a question? There's a motion on the floor.
Yes, sorry, Ms. Roberta. The motion's on the floor for the hire of Mr. Isaiah Roberts as a substitute, long-term substitute teacher in the amount of $9,600. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, nay. Since there are no nays, the motion carries. I want to just clarify one thing. Dr. Bostic, you said that this was already done, so we did not need to go back through Finance Committee, correct?
Correct.
Got it. Okay, wonderful. Thank you. All right, the motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Please go ahead, Ms. Roberta. Thank you very much. Then this means we can move on to the next committee. Report from our Governance Committee. Ms. Robinson, please take the floor.
Yes, the Governance Committee met February 21st, and we discussed and approved the creation of a DPA disciplinary handbook, and contingent in support with Dekalb's handbook, but supports more of the culture and needs and safety of our kids here at DPA.
What is the action that you would like the board to take on the handbook?
We don't have an action. I was just naming what we discussed.
Oh, you just talked about what we did. Okay, so there is no action
No
requirement coming from the Governance Committee?
No, ma'am.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much. Does that conclude your report?
That concludes the report.
All right.
I have one thing I need to add about the corrective action. I put it under this committee, but it's really on all committees. I've talked about the corrective action from DeKalb County Schools in regards to our charter arrangement. And so I just wanted to make sure we have space on the board at some point. I talk about it in every committee, but I just want to make sure that's at the forefront of our mind as well, and where we are with that. So I sent everyone a copy of the corrective action, and then that will be updated starting next round of committees. It'll be updated, and that'll be a part of the governance committee moving forward once we have that, so we can all just keep abreast of where we are according to that action.
Thank you, Dr. Bostic. That is actually extremely important given our current status with our authorizer. And if we make that a consistent practice to review where our compliance measures are, I think that will move us a little closer to where we're supposed to be, and that we're staying on top of that for accountability reasons and for the progress that we're making and the support that you will need if there are gaps. So thank you very much for that. That then takes us to our Development Committee, and I believe you can. Okay, please go ahead, Dr. Bostic.
Yeah, so we are revisiting the partnership with Micah University, and so we presented this last board meeting, but then we wanted to wait to go through development, so we just had permission to go ahead and vote, and this is just exploring. We're voting to sign the MOU to explore what the partnership would look like and what it could entail. So we're not agreeing or allocating funds to it. This is an exploratory expedition on what this partnership can look like. And so this is what the MOU is. We've had 3 meetings with them so far. Dr. Cooper has served as the spearhead for the strategic partnerships and has worked diligently with them. And so that is, I'm asking if we could entertain a motion to move forward with the exploration of the Micah University partnership.
I don't know that this would come under development. I'm not saying we shouldn't, but the development is for fundraising, grants, opportunities, et cetera. This is a partnership for a collaborative effort. Okay, so maybe this needs to come under governance or academic.
Okay, I'll move it to one of those committees.
Okay.
Are we still able to vote on it?
Okay, so our academic committee chair has accepted the charge to approve the committee under her purview. So if there's a motion to be made to the board, please go ahead and do that at this time.
I move that we approve the exploration of the strategic partnership with Micah University and Dekalb Preparatory Academy.
I second the motion.
Okay, so this is a partnership with Dekalb to provide exceptional education to our students.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the partnership with the Michael University to explore
Establishing a strategic partnership
with Michael University
to provide exceptional education.
to provide exceptional education. Thank you, Ms. Roberta, for feeding me that that language. All in favor, please say, is there a second to the motion? Sorry.
I second the motion.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Since there are no nays, the motion carries for the approval of the collaborative partnership with the Michael University to explore educational opportunities for students and teachers. Thank you very much. On our agenda, up next are other business. I would ask the board to take a moment to consider any other business that they would like to at this time, that they would like to talk about at this time. There are no recommendations from the board. I did notice, however, that we did not have a public comment period, which is required. So I am going to put under other business a public comment period, allowing our stakeholders to address the board at this time if they so desire. If there is none, we will move forward accordingly. So I open the floor to our stakeholders to address the board at this time. Since there are no apparent requests from our stakeholders for a request to address the board, we will move on from our comment period, and that will take us to our adjournment. But before I ask for an adjournment, I just want to open the floor to any board member to find out if they have any questions or comments they would like to share at this time. Hearing none, may I have a motion for adjournment for this evening's meeting?
I move that we adjourn the meeting. It's 8:49 p.m.
I second the motion.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor for the adjournment of this evening's meeting. Thank you, everybody, for your time and your efforts. We appreciate you, and congratulations to our teachers, Teacher of the Month and our Teacher of the Year. We appreciate you for all that you do for our students and for our DPA community. Good night, everybody.